To our other top story now, of course, major news this morning coming out of the Supreme Court of Canada, a number of rulings on marijuana cases. And the cases that made it all the way to the Supreme Court were divided into three rough categories: cases about possession, cultivation, and trafficking. David Malmo-Levine was at the center of the trafficking case. He was arrested in 1997 for selling pot from what he called a harm reduction club. Then 5 years later, the case, of course, now is closed. He lost, and David Malmo-Levine joins me from Vancouver. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine. How are you? I guess you're kind of ticked off.
Yeah, well, it's a brutal day for cannabis Canadians and Canadians in general. The Constitution isn't what they made it out to be, I think.
I'm not quite sure I follow why it's a brutal day for Canadians. Basically, the court just said the laws are the laws and they're valid.
Well, say you don't smoke pot, but if you want to list all the ways that the war on pot adversely affects us Canadians who don't smoke pot, well, there's a wasted resources. We can't find all those missing women in Vancouver, but we sure have a grow squad to go after the gardeners. And then there's the missing tax dollars. We don't have enough money to pay for our schools and hospitals, but we'll just give all the Al Capone and all the gangsters all this drug profits. And then there's the wasted opportunity to evolve as a species that learns how to not label drugs in terms of good and evil, but proper use and improper use, and we could, be as dignified as the Dutch people currently are.
Take me back. What actually happened in your case?
Well, I set up a club to basically defend dealers in the media. I set up the Harm Reduction Club to make a point that you could deal cannabis properly and you could reduce the harms. Some of the legitimate harms being impaired driving, impaired lungs. We taught about safer, smarter smoking techniques, organic quality controls and setting, all familiarity, all those things. And then it wove its way to the Supreme Court of Canada. And when I got there, I was optimistic because the only thing they said back to me after I pleaded with them 4 times to come up with holes in my argument while I was there, the only thing they said back was, perhaps we are convinced. And it was as if it's all a game to them, that they don't really want an interchange in justice. They don't feel that their reasons, whatever they were worthy of discussion at that level. They just wanted to hear me and then forget me and everyone else who came to them saying, hey, we're harmless, protect us. So I think it's a game. I think it's a joke now.
When you were actually arrested, you were charged with selling how much?
Well, a few hundred grams I had on me. But I mean, I was pretty Mickey Mouse compared to a lot of the drug dealers in the world. Ollie North, he was dealing cocaine, and the CIA is implicated in a lot of that. I was dealing herbs.
Let me bring it back to your case, though.
Yeah.
In terms of, because if we're looking at the future as well, the Prime Minister, Paul Martin, has said that he does not believe young people should have a record for simply using what he calls a small amount, and he wants that amount to be debated. But he certainly wouldn't be talking about having 100 grams or more. So you're not, I presume, taking much hope from him either.
Well, actually, if he does exactly what he says he's going to do, that'd be worse than not changing the law at all. Because his version of decrim, you still get a record, because the future employers or customs agents can ask you, have you gotten busted, let alone convicted. And then you still have all the problems with the fines, not going to jail for not paying the fines, the forced treatment they have in mind for people who continue to pay fines and are recalcitrant repeat offenders, as Hetty Fry might say. So no, and the mandatory minimums for growing, that's going to put thousands of people, maybe hundreds of thousands of people in jail, and it's going to be just like the United Snakes of America up here. It's no different. So no, decrim is not good. Cannabis activists all over the country are going to be fighting decrim tooth and nail. It's like prohibition slick. So no, Paul Martin is the ex-CEO of Amasco, and that's the head of the Imperial Tobacco and Shoppers Drug Mart. So he's a hardcore drug pusher, and you can't look to him for anything.
I don't want to let that characterization go by, but let me ask you, when you say that the activists will be fighting, I was talking with one activist earlier, and he said that his way of fighting is going to be to join up with Jack Layton and the NDP and fight it in the political arena. Will there be other forms of attack, do you think?
Yes. Well, Jack Layton's a great hope for us all. He said the legalization word, the cafe word, and the occasional use word. We're encouraged. But I myself am going to open up another club. I'll call it the Ounces of Prevention Club. And send the message out that not just pills are preventative medicine, that healthy people use medicine too for stress, depression, fatigue, loss of appetite, lack of sleep, lack of motivation, lack of focus. And if you use herbs instead of pills, it doesn't suddenly become recreation and therefore criminalized. That prevention is a part of medicine.
Yeah, I want to be clear. The medical use of marijuana was not in any way part of today's cases, but
no.
Given the fact that people like you have been, and I guess will again be shut down, does that have any impact on the supply of the medical use?
Well, I don't think that it's a given that I'll be shut down. The Vancouver Compassion Club that deals medicine to sick people hasn't been even touched by the police. If you suddenly deal medicine to healthy people, how does it automatically stop being medicine? I think we have a humongous amount of community support, at least where I live in Vancouver. It's like 80 or 90% use and 100% in favor of reduction in the law. Even the police come and apologize when they bust us. So we're not going away.
What do you mean they apologize?
Well, in Edmonton, where I'm from, the police gave lectures when they arrested you for even pipe resin. But out here, the cops are all sheepish and they can't look you in the eye, and they know they're doing something wrong. They know they're a part of something that should be gone away, because the awareness about how cannabis affects people is so dramatic here. In Vancouver, the desperation and the poverty and the alcoholism and the CIA drugs, the heroin and the cocaine, all that, you see it on one side, and then you see the pot people. They're all happy, hungry, relaxed, high-functioning, productive, tax-paying members of society, and you think, okay, a police officer, I'm going to state the obvious, is that the pot people aren't the problem.
David, I'll leave it at that, but
right.
I got a feeling we'll be talking again. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.